Guys, it is really early here in my studio, and I thought we could do a Bob Ross inspired how-to video to paint this flying eye. Now typically I paint flying eyes perfectly circular because that's how eyes are. Everything on the human body is, especially eyes, are perfectly circular. But this particular flying eye is going on this massive green toolbox, which is all rat fink and lowbrow inspired. And so this one I really wanted to highlight the Von Dutch version of the flying eye. So yesterday I freehanded this design using inspiration, of course, from the original flying eye Von Dutch. And let's see if I can find. I transferred the design on with a Stabilo pencil, which is just basically a wax pencil. All of mine are like 1.5 inches big. They're like this big. I don't know if you can see that, but it's for plastic and metal, and you can just draw directly onto metal and then it comes off with just some water. So I transferred the design on there and I did a quick run with just some base colors to get that green color back gone, so that the colors I add today will be a little bit more pure. Some people just paint the whole thing white, but for me it was important to kind of have a base layer of what colors are going to go where. So yeah, this morning I'm going to kind of teach you how to paint this large scale flying eye. Alright, so today we are using alpha white and light alpha blue, alpha red, and McKeague black, and then dark L-Bugs dark yellow, which I don't know if it's called L-Bugs anymore, but it's a dark yellow, all from Alpha Enamel. There is a link that I'll put underneath this video so that you guys can use the same paint. This is automotive enamel, it's sign painter's paint, and it's oil based, so you're gonna want to mix it with or tone it. You can use it straight from the bottle, or you can reduce it with like a mineral spirits or a paint thinner so that it flows a little bit more freely. For things that aren't going to be outside, I just use like a cheap paint thinner. In fact, yeah, here's this, and I'm almost out of it, but I use this. Most of these colors will flow straight from the bottle if you're not doing straight long line pinstriping. But yeah, this is a good cheap alternative to like some expensive reducer. I do suggest that if you're working on cars or vehicles, helmets, things like that, of that nature that'll be used really heavily, especially outside, that you use an actual reducer designed to work with the paint. Alpha Enamel has a reducer, but I actually prefer the one-shot reducer, high temperature, since we're here in Texas. The paint brushes that we're going to be using today, I have this one random one. I don't even know where I bought this brush, but it's a very cheap brush. I think it was from Walmart. And then we have a collection of different brushes, but they're all from the same artist designer. They're from the Mac Tidwell line. They have the green handles and the pink handles, and they come in large sets. Again, I'll put these brush links down in the bio of this description of this video. But I have the Mac Tidwell Pinky, Broken Pinky, the Mac Tidwell a little bit more, and the Mac Tidwell Mullet. And they're all well loved and used, but these are the 3 brushes that I'm going to be doing some pretty major design work with. And then this big flat top brush that I showed you from Walmart will be like the base color design. So, and then as far as palettes go, I just steal all of our Summit catalogs from the mail, and I keep these around, and this is what I use to mix paint on. You can see that's what I used yesterday. It keeps the paint kind of warm because of the newsprint material that these catalogs come on, and it makes a cool little piece of artwork when you're done as well. And then last but not least, Dixie Cups for all of your mixing paint needs. I mix on my palette primarily. Some people mix like a full color and put it in their cup so they have a bunch of the same color at once. All right, so especially with white and with alpha enamel, you almost always need more than one coat of white, especially on a dark green color like this. So that's what we're gonna do first. And this way, while this secondary white coat is drying, you can work on the other details of the Flyin Eye. So here is the amount of paint that that I just poured on there, and I just go straight in with my brush. Now I use a brush conditioner. Let's see if I can find it. Basically, it's like a conditioner you would use for your hair, but it's for your brush bristles. It's super important to clean your brushes afterwards. I'll do a video on that. But before you dip your paintbrush into any paint in the morning when you're very first starting, you want to make sure you clean that brush conditioner out of the brush hairs. Right now it's kind of greasy and gross. And so I just kind of run this through some paint thinner, and then if it's really greasy with like my sign painting brushes that have more hairs, I'll run it through like some mineral spirits too, just to be sure that all that brush conditioner is out of your actual brush hairs and it's not transferred into your paint or onto your final product. So yeah, once you get a clean brush, kind of dry it off a little bit, and then have at it. Okay, so I have the second layer of white paint on the eyeball itself. Now you kind of, in this kind of painting, you have to like kind of forward think about what can I work on first that's gonna dry while I work on something else, so that in a few minutes you can go back to that same area where you're working and add all the other details. So thinking forward, I know that I'm probably going to do one more layer of white on this eyeball just so that it really pops and you can't see a lot of the brush marks. So after I've got this second coat on here, which is probably going to take a little bit to dry, I'm going to start working on the wings, which with this design from Von Dutch are very flat. There's not a lot of shading until the very end, where I'll go in and put like a very harsh shadow line where the wing lines go. And so as simple as this, we're just going to go back through and we're going to take the dark yellow from Alpha Enamel, pour it onto the same palette page, and fill that same shape in with my same brush. Now I'm going to clean this brush a little bit. I don't go hog wild with trying to clean my brushes in between colors. I think that's actually kind of a signature of mine, because it gives the painting a cohesive look when you have a little bit of other colors pulling through. And especially with white, like, it actually helps the other colors to be less transparent if you have a little bit of white paint on your brush. And then you go into a yellow, that extra white paint is actually going to aid in the opaqueness of the yellow color, because yellow is really hard to, and I think with a lot of mediums, not just enamels, but with acrylic and oil, yellow in particular always needs a secondary color to be slightly mixed in with it, just a drop of it. A lot of people use silver, just a drop of silver paint with a yellow, especially if it's not the dark yellow, if it's like a higher, or if it's like a highlighter yellow, like for instance this yellow, which is I think sherbet. Oh, sorry, I'm in the garage and there's bugs. Yeah, the sherbet color. Let's see. So sunshine, this is kind of like a sherbet yellow color. This color can be very transparent as well, and if you don't add a drop of white to your paint to get that pigment a little bit more stout, you're gonna have to go back through a couple more times to get that color to cover completely. So like I said, we're just going to go back to our palette. We're gonna pour the dark yellow on there. I mean, you can be pretty generous with this one because we're gonna have to be painting these huge shapes. So yeah, same brush, same paint, just a different color. We're gonna go back through and get a second layer of paint on these wings. The second coat of yellow on the wings and then on the eyeball as well, and so I'm changing brushes since I'll be doing this blue centerpiece. It's a little bit smaller, and I don't know, let me do a quick like scan of this so that you can kind of see how for lack of better words, you can kind of see how like sloppy this is painted. And sloppy isn't really the right word. I just want you to see that when you're using this paint and painting in these blocks, you don't have to be perfect. And that's just my philosophy. And so anyways, again, I am switching to a smaller brush. This is the mullet brush from the Mac Tidwell set, Broken Pinkies set with the hot pink candles, and that will be for me to paint in this blue iris on the eyeball. And then after that, we'll let this dry completely, probably I'd say 30 to 40 minutes. And then I'm gonna add a third layer of yellow onto the wings so that they really pop, possibly a third layer of white onto the eyeball portion. And then after that, we will move on to the most fun part, which is all of the black and white highlights and details with the under wing shadows. Because this piece is so large, I am going to be using this brush, but in normal tradition, I would be using a virus brush, which has less hair at the end of the brush for any of my outlines. So these are completely just for outlining. So the next thing we're going to do is take Alpha Enamel Black paint, and we're going to outline the wings and actually start giving this some definition. This is my most favorite part. All right, so when you do outlining, you're going to want to take your paint from your bottle and pour it onto your palette, and then make sure you have some thinner of some kind around. Mine obviously has some yellow in it, but that's okay. We're going to take our pickup line brush from Mac Tidwell, clean it off a little bit, and the amount of thinner that you get just by doing this in your brush is going to probably be enough for you to kind of mix in, and you can kind of see how it's starting to really mix into the paint. That thinner is starting to really kind of mix into the paint. Let me clear this. I'm gonna get a little bit more thinner. What I like to do as a good rule of thumb, you can kind of see how, I don't know what the word is, but see how like it kind of just like drops off my brush? That's probably too thin. The consistency that we're looking for with outlines is the consistency of honey, like warm honey. And so that's always what I think of. If you don't know what I mean, go grab yourself a thing of honey at the store, keep it room temperature, and pour some on a plate, and run your brush through it and see what it's like. And that'll give you a good idea of what the consistency of your paint should feel like. And so how I'm palletting is, let me show you my hands here. I'm holding the brush like a pencil, and let me get this clear here. Holding the brush like a pencil, and I'm turning the brush with my thumb. So it's turning back and forth, and as I'm dragging the brush through the paint, I'm turning it back and forth. Just little half turns back and forth and back and forth. And what that's doing is it's bringing the paint from the tip of the brush all the way into what's called the hilt of the brush, this black part right here. And for these types of long-haired brushes, it's really important to do this because that will bring the paint through all of your bristles so that when you start to pull a line, you don't run out of paint. That is the importance of these types of brushes. You cannot pull a straight line without, let me show you the difference. All right, so I have my perfectly mixed consistency of paint here, like we just talked about. And I'm going to show you the difference between pulling a line. So you can hold the brush however you need to, but for this, I'm just gonna pull a line and show you how consistent the line is all the way down. You can push and pull and you don't ever run out of paint. And that's because we filled the brush from the tip to the hilt of paint, and that's by doing the quarter motion turns as we're pulling through the paint. Now I'm gonna wash this brush and show you the line if you were to just dip the brush into the paint with just the hairs. So hold on just a minute. Okay, so the brush is fairly clean now. I just used mineral spirits to clean it real quick. Paint thinner, I mean, I'm sorry. Most people, this is where a lot of beginners kind of mess up, is they put the brush, especially if they're used to painting with acrylics, they put the brush just at the tip like this, which is normally what you're taught to do when you learn how to paint. You just put the paint, let me get this focused here. You just put the paint at the end of your brush hairs. And that's because if you, in a traditional way, with like say acrylic paint, if you were, oh my gosh, why isn't this focusing? If you were to put the paint all the way to the hilt right here, the brush becomes really like caked up and hard to work with, and it actually like builds up paint right here. It gets really tricky to use. So if we were to just do that with just the tip of this brush, same paint consistency of that honey consistency, warm honey. I think I've even worked just out of habit, I've worked the paint up the brush. So let's see here. All right, so this has just on the tip, this line is going to be extremely inconsistent. See how it starts to run out of paint? And so that is the importance of loading your brush correctly. And so that's what we're about to do on the Flyin Eye. We're going to load our brush from the tip of the brush all the way down to the hilt of the brush with this black liner paint. And we're going to do our half quarter turns back and forth, and then we're going to go straight over to the toolbox. I'm going to start with our perfectly loaded brush, outlining this in real time so you can kind of see how the slow movements build the outline, and then we'll time lapse the rest of it so that you guys can watch how this is all done. The slower that you move your brush, the more consistent your line will be. So I'm putting a pretty bold outline on this piece just because I'm trying to make it look as much like the Von Dutch Flyin Eye as possible. And in this real-time video, I'm going to talk about something called a maul stick, which is this stick-looking thing. You can use has a little rubber pad at the end. Sorry, I'm terrible at filming. Okay, so it has this little rubber pad at the end, which helps you not scratch the surface that you're going to be resting this on. This one is extendable, which means you can, lengthen it or shorten it, depending on what you're working on. And it is helpful for when you don't want to set your hand in the paint that is wet. So just make sure. It is a whole nother beast filming and trying to paint. It is so much slower. So just lay your brush down with some confidence. Go back. Alright, so I'm running out of paint right there, which is okay. I'm just going to go back through and palette my brush. and come back in and lay down the bristles right back in the same line. I had a little blowout here. You can kind of see it in this black line. What I normally do to fix this is I let it dry just a tiny bit, not completely, you know, I don't let it completely harden or dry, but I take the mullet brush and I put a little bit of thinner on it, clean preferably. I don't have clean right now, but you want to have a clean thinner on it, and you just go back through. Ooh, I just saw you just go back through. I kind of go like this to get that like hairline real thin. You can see how flat the brush is. And I just go back through and I push that paint back up into the line, and it can be a little bit messy. It's kind of like a surgical maneuver here, but I use the edge of that brush to kind of clean up the blowout. And the thinner is what takes off the paint. So I take, to keep my brush like that flat, consistent, the flat shape, it's bad. Normally I'm wearing gloves, but I take the brush and with thinner on it, and I put my thumb over it and I slide my paintbrush back, and that flattens the brush up but keeps the thinner on there. And then I go back to the work and push it until that line is pretty even with the rest of the line. All right, there we go. Again, this is hand painted, so don't panic if it's not absolutely perfect, but I am a perfectionist, so I wanted to make sure that that circular line was as similar as possible all the way around. All right, so now we have a great solid outline of everything in the design. We are going to go through and add the last small details. Again, using the same brush. I pretty much use 1 to 3 brushes per illustration, and they're usually always the same. I have a liner brush, a flat brush, and then like a real detail brush. We're gonna take some Alpha Red, and we're gonna add in just a few little veins right here, the hot rod veins in the eyeball. We're just gonna kind of go at random. I'm just using the tip of the brush for this segment, and I'm pushing and pulling, which gives it that little bit of weighted and then fine line look. And these are just completely random. There's a few of them right here. And remember your paint consistency. If it's got that honey, warm honey consistency, you'll be able to pull these long and short, fat and skinny lines like this with very minimal paint and reusable paint. So that's probably good. I'll maybe add one more, oh, maybe like one more like right here, one more small one. Connects. Yeah. Okay. The last part is adding highlights. So we're gonna add a white highlight, couple white highlights to this eye where the blue is. Actually, we're gonna start by mixing some colors again. So here we go. All right, we got a clean palette page here. We're going to use light blue by Alpha 6 Corporation. Pour a little bit on our palette. We're gonna use some white Alpha 6 Corporation paint as well, enamels. We're just gonna do just a daub of that. Same brush right here, Mac Tidwell pickup, and take a little bit of that white and a tiny bit of that blue and come over here and just kind of mix this together so that we can get the right shade of light blue that we're looking for to highlight the iris of the eye. This is just going to be a very quick little detail that gives the eye a little bit more three-dimensional look. And then the very last bit is we're going to come in with pure white and do 1 or 2 quick highlights. We're going to take it and we're going to add it to the top of the iris just in some like very simple lines. And we're just kind of doing this quickly, and it doesn't have to be perfect. I'm going to add a little bit of blue to the color that we made, that light blue color that we made. I'm going to add a little bit of blue to it as we move down the iris, just to kind of fade out those lines a little bit. And then put a couple more, maybe like right through here. And the very last thing is going to be taking and cleaning your brush. We're going to pour some white on there. We're going to clean our brush off in just whatever you have laying around. My thinner is probably really gross and old, but we're just going to clean it. And then take it. I just like to take a paper towel and just kind of dry that off. And we're going to take the back of the paintbrush, so the hilt right here, the back of it. I'm sorry, not the hilt, but the handle. And we're going to dip that into the white paint. Here, let me get this focused here. All right, so we're going to take the back of the handle and we're going to dip it into the white paint right here, kind of in a circular motion, and you're going to see it'll have white, like a white dot at the end of your brush. I did not thin this paint at all. It is straight from the bottle. And we're going to go over to your illustration, and we're going to add a highlight, kind of like right where you would see it, right there. And that's how we kind of make a perfect circle. And we're going to go back and do that one more time with a smaller circle right next to it. And you can go back through and kind of fix what you need to fix, if anything. I'm actually going to do one